So for this next video, we're going to continue. So how can you factor to solve, right? So when you see one variable, you're saying, okay, I'm clearly trying to solve for x. You're stuck here, it's a quadratic. So one method is to try factoring. So factoring, get all terms on one side, set all factors equal to 0, and solve, right? That's what we were doing for the last three. It was already set up. It was factored. And then we just set them to 0 and solved. So for the last set that we just looked at in the last video, get all terms on one side and factor, that was already done for us. And all we had to do is then set them to 0 and solve to get our answers. Now remember that these problems stem, like I said, from, often parabolas. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And when you're solving for these x values, they're where your graph touches or crosses the x-axis. Sometimes, depending on the picture, right, it might just touch, right, might be tangent at a spot, and sometimes they don't even touch the x-axis. So these problems are really found when you're talking about parabolas by replacing y with 0 so that you can find the variable that's left, the x values or the x-intercepts. When you're solving these quadratics, again, you'd be finding x-intercepts or where the parabola touches x-axis. So now, if it just says solve for x, well, you can't add 12x, you can't have the variables on both sides. So this is one case where we could try factoring. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all terms on one side, right? So we'll subtract 64, that's a 6, 64 from both sides. And then we get x squared minus 12x minus 64 equals 0. So that's step 1. Get all terms on one side. Step 2 is factor. Now you look for GCF, there is none. What multiplies to AC, that adds to B. So it multiplies to negative 64. That adds to negative 12. So we know that our answers can't be 8 and 8. Let's see, we could have what values? We could have let's see, 16 and 4. And if it has to add to negative 12, it's going to be negative 16. So then we'll have x plus 4 x minus 16 so that's fully factored, and then the last part is you set your factors equal to 0. So like we did before, if we set x plus 4 equal to 0, we subtract 4 and we get x is negative 4. If we set x minus 16 equal to 0, we add 16, so we would get x equals 16. So those are our two values. Okay, so for this next one, all terms are on one side. If you're looking for combos that multiply to 64, that add to 16, it's 8 and 8. So we have x plus 8, x plus 8 equals 0. Now if we set both of these equal to 0 and solve, we would get x equals negative 8, right? And we'll see later down the road, if this was a y, so that's our answer, x is negative 8. But if we were to look down the road and we were looking at this parabola, we'll notice that it's going to be tangent and it's just going to touch the graph at negative 8. Okay, watch the next video for the word problems.